Welcome to Yearbooks Live, the podcast for yearbook teams to learn everything that you need to know about the yearbook business with our 10-minute weekly podcast for the real world. I'm your host, your coach, your teacher, JP, coming to you from sunny South Florida. This is episode number 4 of Yearbooks Live. Today we're going to talk to a really special guest, Kurt Ricks of Amazing Imagery. Kurt's been doing a lot of photography for many years, been a professional photographer, shooting celebrities, nature, weddings, started out in the yearbook business, has got a lot of really good insight and tips for all you yearbookers. So sit back, relax, and let's get into it. Today's episode of Yearbooks Live is sponsored by Yearbook Life. If you're looking for a high-quality yearbook at a lower cost, Yearbook Life may be what you're looking for. There's no need to keep paying the high cost of yearbooks. Check out Yearbook Life at yearbooklife.com. So we're here today with Kurt Ricks, Ricks with Amazing Imagery. Kurt and I have known each other, I don't know, Kurt, how many years? 40 something-ish? Been many years.
50, yeah, gosh.
As long as I've known Kurt, he's been in the photography business. He's as experienced as a photographer as I've ever been around. Wanted to bring him in today, say hello, pick his brain, make sure you guys understand a little bit about photography and where he comes from and how he does it. And so real quick, just to kind of start off, we've known each other, I think, like we said, probably 40 plus years. I've never known you without a camera in your hand.
I don't even know that I know myself without a camera, Johnny. I was a yearbook photographer in like 1982, and what I found out at that age was it's a backstage pass to life. What I found out was you can get out of class, you can get out your friends out of class, and then it puts you front row to everything that's going on, whereas everybody else wants to be front row, or everybody else has to be chosen to be front row, or you have to, no. With the camera, you get paid to be front row.
That's funny you say that because years ago when we were kids, Kurt used to photograph concerts, and I used to have this crush on Madonna back in the day. I don't know if you remember this.
That was one of my first shows, yeah.
Yeah, so I was begging him. He was front row, like he says, taking pictures of Madonna, literally looking at his camera, if you remember that.
I do.
And I put those pictures, back in the day we used to have to print pictures, believe it or not, at like Walgreens, which back then was actually called Ecker Drugs. And we had to print these pictures, and I had these Madonna pictures of her literally from me this far away, and she's looking at the camera. You know, someone stole those pictures. I don't know what happened.
I still have the negatives. I still have all my negatives. I have. I shot first 2 concerts. I shot Michael Jackson, Madonna. That was like.
Well, I know I've got a bunch of them from one of them.
Madonna Like a Virgin tour. The photo you're referring to is her in a wedding dress, laid down on the stage, looking straight into my camera. And it was just a surreal moment.
And you were young at that point.
I was 16 years old.
Were you that young?
16
yeah, you were
years
young
old
at the time. I remember you were already doing that. So at that point, you started taking. You were in the school yearbook at that point.
Yeah,
correct?
It was a school yearbook thing. That's all it really was. And then actually, because of the medium being film, it was expensive, and everybody wanted pictures. Everybody wanted a copy of pictures. So to make 3, 4, 5 copies of pictures back in the 80s, it would cost you $40, $50. So I got a job in a photo lab. Duh. So then I got free film, and I got free processing, and I got free enlargements.
I was always wanted to know why you never charged me for those, but now I know.
Yeah, no, because that's really the only way today. Being digital doesn't cost you anything. You shoot as much as you want, digitally send them for free. Back then, you had to buy the film. Then you had to wait on the film, and then you had to pay for the film, whether the pictures came out or not. And then it was Ecker Drugs that came out with, you didn't have to pay for the ones that were bad. Right. And that's how they cornered the market. But, you had to it was an expensive hobby. And I like to shoot everything there was. I had the key at the Sportatorium, and then after I worked at the photo lab, all the Miami Dolphins photographers used the photo lab as their main source of developing. I would always beg the photographers, hey, if you ever need an assistant, if I can ever help you, if I can carry your cameras. I was a huge Dan Marino fan, huge Miami Dolphin fan.
Right.
Fast forward 3 years, the guy that would always come in shows up, says, hey, my guy isn't able to make it. I've got an extra credential. Do you want to shoot for us?
And that was on the field.
Yeah, this is action, man. Action.
How old
Jackson.
were you at that time?
17 years old.
17 years old.
Yeah,
Wow.
And now I'm standing next to Dan Marino at the Orange Bowl going, what the heck, man? This camera is a bomb. It's your ticket. It's my backstage pass.
Yeah.
My dad had season tickets since the 60s, and he was a football fan, and next thing you know, he sees his son on the sidelines with idols. It was Marino and Duper and Clayton and Offerdahl, and it was when Miami was actually good.
A long time ago.
These were my idols, but that bottom line is my camera put me next to one of my dreams, and that was to be, on a field at a professional event.
Right. So you started with the yearbooks, started doing yearbook photography in the high schools. Miramar High School, shout out.
I actually went to Nova, but it's all right,
Didn't you start at Miramar, though?
No, I
never did, huh?
Miramar Elementary School.
Oh, okay, well, there you go. Interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, you started in the yearbook side of the business. So if you got a bunch of kids now that are obviously shooting digital pictures in the high schools today, what advice you got for those kids starting out today?
First advice: ethics. Show up early, stay late, do a good job. Most important thing in this business that I've learned is to edit immediately and deliver your product immediately. Do not make your clients wait on images. Especially today, it's instant. If you don't like what you do, get out of the business, bottom line. I love what I do what I love, and that's why it's not work. So with that in mind, when I shoot with a finished product already in mind. I don't shoot for quantity and then have to edit through 1,000 images. My advice is to think about what you're going to shoot, learn about what you're going to shoot if you don't know about it. Let's say you're a girl on the yearbook staff and your assignment is to shoot the homecoming football game, but you don't know anything about football, maybe the cheerleading side of it. So are you just going to go shoot cheerleaders? No. What I suggest you do, YouTube a football game, see what's captivating. That way when when you get out there, you've got something to look for, something to pinpoint, instead of having to shoot the whole entire game, sifting through that whole entire game of photos and picking out one or two that might tell your story.
All right, good advice.
I always go into everything with a storyline already told, with a vision already in mind, and I don't need to shoot 7,000 images. I'm kind to myself in that I know I've got to edit my own work. That's time. That's money. Time is all we have on this planet, so maximize it, you know what I mean?
Great advice.
So when I'm looking through my camera, before I go into, let's say, a wedding, I know I'm not going to shoot 15 photos of the bride walking down the aisle. That's a waste. I'm going to shoot one. I'm going to shoot one of her kissing the mother. I'm going to shoot one of her putting the ring. They're only the essential moments, and in today's digital imaging, you don't need to what they call bracket, meaning shoot one image underexposed, one image regular, one image over, to make sure you got one. Now you can see it instantly, move on.
So how long, Kurt, did it take you to realize that advice? How long did it take? That wasn't something you
No, God, forever. Man, I failed so miserably in my young career as I procrastinated. I had you because you paid me already and I had your images and I wasn't as responsible and I lost a lot of work. Now, fast forward, when I got contracted by big outlets, like I was contracted by Hard Rock, Orlando, Universal Studios, I'm obligated to turn over good images in a timely manner. If I don't, there's 50 people or more behind me that want my job because I'm getting front row access to every celebrity there is. So yeah, people want my job, and if I don't do it well, if I don't say yes sir, no ma'am, yes please, show up early, stay late, do a good job with a smile, someone else is going to have my job. So therefore, if you keep your ethics and be kind to yourself, knowing that post work is the worst work because that's going to prolong you getting your images to your customer, your client. So if you can minimize that and know that when you go home, you've only got an hour's worth of post as opposed to 10 hours worth of post, it's an easy thing. You make a pot of coffee, kick out your images, here's your client, you're done, you're paid, everybody's happy, you wake up, you can sleep easy.
Interesting. All right, so you started the yearbook, and man, like I said, we've known each other a long time. I've seen you shoot everything you can imagine, every celebrity that you can imagine. You've been doing it. You've been doing everything. Amazing Imagery is the name of the company. What are you doing now with photography?
You know, Johnny, thank God I've been able to pick and choose now what I want to shoot because I've been steadfast to being early and staying late and doing a good job. People now request my services. I don't have to go look for work. I'm very fortunate. Can most people say that? I don't think they can. So am I thankful for it? Yes, but I worked really hard to do that. So now I look at what feeds my heart. What feeds my heart is simplicity and outdoors. A bear eating salmon, a bald eagle catching a fish, a sunrise, a sunset. It's the simple things in life, man. The older you get, you realize how much that they mean more.
Tell me, absolutely.
And I've been in the action. I've been shooting people for 30 years, and to be honest, they're a pain in the neck. You know, famous people, celebrities, they're entitled. They tell you be there at 10 o'clock, and they don't show up till 1 a.m. I shot Paris Hilton's birthday party. I had to be there at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. to wait on her for a photo wall. 1 p.m. Gosh, let's get this again. 1 a.m. She shows up. I'm standing there for 3 hours with my finger in my nose, waiting for Paris Hilton to celebrate her birthday. It's just a pain, and there's no creative content. Outdoors, man, I find every sunset's different. Every sunrise is different.
So now, saying outdoors, I know now you live half the year in South Florida and the other half of the year in Tahoe. So you can't get better outdoors, I guess, in the world pretty much than Tahoe, correct?
I've been to 46 states. Tahoe has been the prettiest I've ever found. The most welcoming. It's everything that Florida doesn't have on steroids. I don't know. South Florida has turned into a real busy place, and I grew up. You know, we grew up in Fort Lauderdale in the '80s.
Yeah.
Busy as it gets.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Spring break.
Yeah. The people are just not the same as I grew up with, as what I'm accustomed to, and my preference is to be alone in Mother Nature as opposed to in a crowd, in a club.
And taking pictures.
Yeah.
It's great. All right, so in the business, in the yearbook business, we get a lot of questions about equipment. And what equipment should I use? And where do I get my equipment? What advice you give the kids starting out?
Common question, relatively general answer anymore. All digital cameras are about the same. Preferences are personal in that, do you want to turn your lens to the right or to the left to mount it? Being Nikon versus Canon, the main players, it's about the only difference. Everything's got 4K video, 20 megapixel or more stills, auto modes. It's basically made photography foolproof. Whereas I learned with a film camera, I learned apertures and shutter speeds and proper way to use. And that's another piece of advice if I can offer you. Learn your equipment. You're only as good as your equipment. You can't just shoot everything on auto mode and think you're going to get a good shot. You might get a decent shot. However, when you master the controls on your camera and you can manipulate light and you can manipulate speed, that's when you get images that make people go, wow. Anybody can point and shoot a camera. And in today's age, your phone has better cameras than literally 5 years ago. I spent $2,000 a piece on 8 megapixel cameras for my staff. Now, their iPhone is 12. Yeah,
that's great.
And it shoots 4K video.
So what do you recommend? Actually, not recommend. What do you shoot personally?
I'm a Canon guy only because that's what I learned on. It's what I know. I can say they have a great professional services program in which they maintain your equipment for you and send it back overnight. And they also lend you lenses and equipment if you're part of their program.
That does cost more, right?
It's an alternative program, but it's worth the money. And if you're shooting as a pro, it's almost essential. So they've always been good customer service, good quality. I mean, I can't say that I haven't seen beautiful images come out of Nikon. That would be a lie. So again, it's a personal preference. Any camera anymore has got the same megapixels, the same capabilities. This is a matter of functional.
Good advice, Kurt Ricks. Tell us where we can find you. Where can people see your work? Where can they find you? By the way, seeing his work on this video, we're going to post a bunch of pictures, some really cool stuff that he's done over the years. You'll see him back when we were hanging out as young kids all the way up through today, shooting some of the most famous celebrities in the world, some great nature pictures. We'll post them up there. But where can they find you? How can they get a hold of you if they want to talk to you?
Anymore, I'm kind of off the radar. I'm not looking, when I was younger, you want to be famous, you want to be popular. I think I'm on the cruise downhill anymore, and I'm rather fade into the sun, and I'm not out there on Instagram or Facebook or my website as actively as I used to be. But so, for instance, I got hurt in an accident. I haven't been able to do a lot of things I love, and instead of crying about it, I've just rediscovered myself in my photography in a sense of last summer, I connected with a gentleman who has cerebral palsy, was born with it. He has a summer camp in Tahoe for disabled children. So I volunteered my photography services at his summer camp, and it was
a great cause.
It was the most rewarding thing I've ever done, Johnny.
Fantastic cause.
I didn't make a nickel. I've been paid tens and tens of thousands of dollars to use my camera. I've also been paid nothing to use my camera. This was the most I've ever been paid.
Yeah, in other ways.
Yeah. And you know, just it's a culmination of a great career in that now I'm giving back. Even though I can't do what I used to, thank God I always had my camera. So I don't just have stories. I have pictures of my stories. That's right. Proof. I have video of my stories. It's, I don't have just a beer and a hold my beer, watch this story. Right. I've lived a really charmed life, but my camera has been my backstage pass.
As long like we've talked about at the beginning, as long as I remember, you've had that camera. Hey man, I appreciate you coming out and talking to us today.
One closing thought for you kids. My father told me at a young age that if you love what you do and do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's what I did. I followed my passions, and I didn't let anybody tell me I couldn't.
Right.
Except my father, who wanted me to be a baseball player. And the culmination of that is when I sent him a photo of me in a suit and tie between Carmen Electra and Jenny McCarthy, and said, "Dad, finally got that real job." And he didn't have much. He didn't have much else to say except "Good job, son." And
it's always a pleasure, Kurt Ricks.
Thanks,
I appreciate
Johnny.
it.
It was great
Amazing
to talk to
imagery,
you.
Kurt Ricks.
Have a great day.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Cool.